got a Thursday night football game that, I think a lot of people look at this and they say, well, this isn't a very good game to watch or to bet on. But let's be very clear. We only have so many Thursday night football games to go. So let's just revel in this the best we can. BetMGM, that's who's offering our odds here. And we've got a really interesting pick'em challenge from BetMGM that I'm going to talk about in just one second. But Maestro, I'm going to start with you. We've got the Raiders at home -3. Obviously, we're very aware of this quarterback situation. It's Easton Stick. It's Aiden O'Connell probably for 4 quarters unless he gets pulled. This is a low total, 34.5. Give us an idea of where you're headed in this one.
Well, Easton Stick was the backup to Phillip Rivers. That's how long he's been in the Chargers system, 5 years. I'm not saying he is a great NFL quarterback, but he knows the system. He's very mobile, and he went 49-3 at North Dakota State. So this guy is a winner, and he didn't play badly last week when he got his feet wet against Denver. On the other side, Antonio Pierce didn't seem to want to name Aiden O'Connell the starter. It seems like he knows Jimmy G gives him a better chance to win, but if Jimmy G gets hurt this game, they owe him next year over $11 million. So I think there's pressure to play Aiden O'Connell, even though he couldn't do anything last week. The one thing I will caution, even though the Chargers look like a dead team walking, the Raiders have played better under Antonio Pierce. The Raiders don't have their starting left tackle, Colton Miller, or their starting center, Andre James. And Miller was out last week. He's missed 3 games. This is one of the best left tackles in football. And Khalil Mack had 6 sacks the last time they played. He leads the NFL in sacks. So to me, it's not as clear cut as Raiders.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that on the Khalil Mack front. Of course, Bosa not in this game, so that may affect Mack on the other side. Danny, I think, people are starting to learn just in the last few weeks. You're not just a UFC guy. You are super talented when it comes to the NFL, all things football and other sports, might I add. What do you like in this one?
Thank you for the kind words, Sia. And yeah, I'm not too moved by this. You guys know when I come to Early Edge, I usually have a bold take and I say it with my chest. There's nothing that I'm screaming from the mountaintop on this one. I will give you a slight trend that makes me lean towards the Raiders. I like playing the shutout angle. After a team gets shut out, a lot of the time the public's ready to jump against them. They couldn't score. They looked inept. And that was the Raiders against the Minnesota Vikings. Teams off getting shut out are 29-13-3 against the spread in their next game since 2015. So that trend leans towards the Raiders, but I really like Larry's breakdown on the quarterbacking situation, the decision that Pierce made to play O'Connell. And like he said, Easton Stick does have a lot of familiarity. I'm actually going to have a player prop up on the site on my page. So when those odds are released, check that out. And I have a little more for you on this game.
Yeah, set your alerts so that line does it, because if it moves immediately, if you have your alerts on, you don't have to worry about that. I think that's a really interesting stat, Danny. I mean, normally I'm not going to look at trends dating back to 2015, for example. However, this one's really important, I think, because what books do perhaps is they adjust too much with teams coming off of a shutout. And that's a trend that actually makes a lot of sense, right? Because we're seeing perhaps an over adjustment and maybe an advantage to the team that got shut out. Interestingly, though, it's that team that happens to be favored by 3 points. Well, listen, I'm going to give my thoughts on this game. Not now. I'm going to give them later because my official pick actually involves this game. So there's only one thing left for me to do, and that's to go to Buckets. Buckets, I promised everybody on Monday that you may have a no-fly zone pick, and I'm sure you're probably super familiar with these 2 quarterbacks. Of course, I'm referring to A. O'Connell, E. Stick. Do you have a no-fly zone pick? Oh, here we are. E. Stick -145 to throw an interception. A. O'Connell -135 to throw an interception. Buckets, where are we at on this one?
See, I know that everybody has missed my in-depth analysis and my next level takes when I'm doing things like flipping a quarter or rolling a 20-sided die. So here's what I'm going to do for this one. I am going to be picking A. O'Connell at -135, but my reasoning and how I got to this point is because this. Last time A. O'Connell played a team that had blue and white jerseys as their primary colors, he threw 3 interceptions in that game against the Miami Dolphins. Looking at each stick in this little photo right here, I see blue and I see white here. So I'm guessing that A. O'Connell is going to have another bad time at -135. See ya.
Did you say E. Stick? Did you say E. Stick or E. Stick?
Same word.
Stick is what you're doing right now. Stick is the name of the quarterback that is actually playing, believe it or not, for the Chargers, the North Dakota State product, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. And by the way, Buckets, shout out to you. Hilltop 1 says, or Hill 2 Top 1 says, BTTS INT. I'm just curious. How do you feel about both these guys throwing an interception?
Well, I just found out that Stick was a player this morning, so it's obviously a little bit tough to back him to throw an INT, but it's definitely not a bad look considering that both of these teams, I just don't think are very good right now, right? Maybe.
Well, you're absolutely right about that. We'll end the buckets football analysis right there.
You can shop around, but as a gentleman, we are doing this showdown at -3. Maybe we push, or maybe my Venmo is being active in the fourth quarter tonight. We talked about it. The Raiders don't have their starting center. They don't have their left tackle. They may not have Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, or Max Crosby. I just don't think they should be laying this many points, even to a backup quarterback. But this prop I absolutely love, and it's Austin Eckler over receiving yards. Shout out to Alex, because PropStars got this at 26.5 on SportsLine early in the week. It's now 29.5. He also got his catches at 3.5, which are now 4.5. I am still leaning over on all the numbers, and here's why. When Austin Stick came into the game, Austin Eckler had 1 target. At the end of the game, Austin Eckler had 7 targets. He was peppering Austin Eckler, and you have no Keenan Allen now. You have to get this guy comfortable with short completions. To me, that means Austin Eckler. He shattered this number last week. He didn't play in the first matchup against the Raiders, but I think he's going to have a massive game tonight. Any kind of game script supports a big Austin Eckler night.
I usually like to focus on props really for all games, especially Thursday night football, where the line is usually, because it's a singular game, the line usually pretty efficient. I like to dig into those maybe perhaps inefficient markets in the prop market, but because of the unknowns at the quarterback position and because of the unknowns at the skill player positions, it's really hard for me to do that. So I'm going to go with the team that I don't think has sort of been lost in the locker room. I mentioned it last week on the NFL Kickoff Show, which of course is every Sunday at 12 o'clock, that the Chargers, Brandon Staley, he's really lost this locker room. And now he's lost Keenan Allen. Now he's lost Justin Herbert. I just think when you look at both of these teams, there were so many weaknesses on both sides. But I think the weaknesses are most glaring on the Chargers side. They're not going to go to the playoffs. Now they got to go on the road, play a Vegas team that usually is pretty motivated at home. And for the record, usually beats up on bad teams and loses to good teams. We saw them beat the Giants and the Jets when Antonio Pierce became the head coach. I think we're going to see more of the same, where they can beat up on Easton Stick and company. Again, no Keenan Allen. You're going to look at Josh Palmer. You're going to look at Quentin Johnston, 2 guys who haven't played much, if at all, with Easton Stick. Eckler's been relatively ineffective, and we've got at least a couple pieces missing on the Chargers side of the defense. Again, I expect Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, and Max Crosby to play. But if they don't, I don't think this bet is dead. I still like the Raiders -3 in most cases. Certainly, if all 3 are out, that becomes a little bit more of a problem. But I like the Raiders -3 regardless.